Welcome to The Good Pod, where today we're talking about The Good Wife, Season 2, Episode 11, Two Courts. I'm one of your hosts, Jason Reed. With me, as always, someone who can never control the micro expressions of aggression towards me during every podcast, especially when I talk about her in the drug trade, Marissa Garza.
Oh.
Marissa, you good?
Yeah, I'm good because those are warranted. And also anything against Peter. But otherwise, yes. Yeah. I'm good. You good?
I'm good. I'm great.
Good.
Here we are, Two Courts. A very interesting episode because we do have a case of the week, but the case of the week kind of, even in the case of the week segments, kind of flips to the background where you focus more on like the judge lawyer relationships. Like we got the case, but the case is kind of like a yeah, it's the case. Like you understand what's going on. Like usually we would investigate the case, we would do a lot, we would put Kalinda and our Blake on proving our person's innocence, blah blah, but it really just kind of felt like it was like yeah, this guy killed his dad, probably, you understand, but we're going to focus more on the judge and all that stuff. So it was a very interesting aspect of this episode.
Yeah, I think it does a really good job highlighting, all the sides of a court case, all of the moving pieces when it comes to the system of justice that we say we have. And, it takes us out of that straightforward crime, like investigation.
Yeah, and it really is also an interesting episode on the fact that from season 1, we've talked about Will and his basketball games with the other lawyers, the judges. We're like, how does that work? Like, how do you keep your impartiality when you are a judge in these situations? You're playing basketball with other lawyers that are coming up to you to try a case. And this episode really answers that question we've been having of like, how does that work? Like, how is that a thing? And this episode really kind of delves into that. So I'm interested to get into it, to talk about it. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the case, we want to remind you of some free and easy ways you can help this podcast. You can do that by leaving us reviews, by rating our podcast on whatever podcatcher or whatever venue, like a YouTube you're watching us on. You can follow us, subscribe to us, leave us a like, or write us a review. All those things you can do to help our podcast. You can also chop it up with us about The Good Wife, about our podcast, about anything you want over at thegoodpodfeedback@gmail.com. If you write to us, we will write you back. We will chop it up with you, talk to you, whatever you want to say. We're there for you. Those are all the free, easy ways you can help us to get us into more eyes and ears of people that might be interested in this type of content.
Yeah, we're like on this basketball court together.
Yeah.
Like we're really in the basketball court of life.
Yeah.
Together.
We're not going to foul you. We're going to guard you tough, but we're not going to foul you.
Exactly.
Listen, if you need to score on us, if you want to score on us and give us a review, like we'll let you do it. We'll back off. We'll let you score. Yeah, but yeah, do that for us. We'd really appreciate it. Marissa, let's get into everything that happened this episode, because this is a very busy episode with a lot going on.
Yeah. We know that this case of the week is going to be a little bit different because we are not meeting the victim. We are not meeting the defendant. We are not meeting anybody. We are meeting the jury whisperer. The jury whisperer, whose name is Medina. And
I assume it's his last name, but I never catch his first name.
Yeah, I never caught his first name either. He's like a very turtleneck sport coat guy.
Yeah, very hoity-toity gentleman who thinks he's better than everybody else, who apparently can read the jury and figure out how they're feeling. Now, another procedural that's kind of like, I don't know if this was before or after this, or if this episode was inspired by, but if anyone out there remembers the show Bull, starring what's his name, Michael Weatherly, I think, from the NCIS franchise.
Yeah,
he was the NCIS guy. They had a whole show where he was a jury whisperer, jury reader. That was his whole shtick. That was a procedural out there. Actually, I'll look up to see what years that show was and see if this was either inspired by that or if Bull was inspired by this guy.
Well, I hope that Bull was a better jury whisperer than.
Well, that was 2016 to 2022. So Bull might have been inspired by this guy, but I'm sure this is this profession that is out there. This isn't a thing that was cooked up by The Good Wife. This is actually a thing that people do, which I'm sure is what Bull was inspired by. But this is an interesting way to take a look into this kind of, because we've had jury consultants on the show before, but this is like a brand new type of thing. This is a jury that's already been placed, and this guy is going to read these people and say like, oh, they're with our person and not the other person. They're actually they're going towards our side or blah blah blah. So this is a very interesting element to add to the mix,
Yeah, it's
especially
like
since
real-time feedback
yeah
during a case.
yeah,
Like,
especially since
this where we are.
it seems like as we'll find out like within the episode, this might have been a Bond idea, right? Like Bond is
Oh, for
kind of the person
sure.
that's championing this idea, and Bond is kind of the he's bringing new innovations to Lockhart and Gardner. So this is one of his weird kooky ideas.
Well, and this guy is a little weird and a little kooky. So he's
Yeah,
sitting down at the in the conference room when he comes in, and Kalinda is there. And Alicia rushes in. She's like, "Oh my gosh, day before jury or day before trial, it can get really crazy. Have you met Kalinda?"
yeah,
And he's like, "No." He's like,
because Kalinda, it's interesting
"Kalinda's just not saying anything.
because
She's just sitting over there."
Kalinda walks in and Medina is like fussing with a picture and a glass on the desk. He's being weird. Kalinda literally walks in, looks at him, just sits down, and they like stare at each other for a good 5 seconds. It's like, listen, Kalinda ain't one's gonna come in and introduce herself. So
This is true.
if you don't introduce yourself to Kalinda, y'all just gonna sit there and stare at each other. And like you said, Alicia comes in assuming that like two grown adults they've introduced each other to one another, and she's like, "So you met Kalinda?" He's like, "Nah, I haven't." It's like, what? What are y'all doing in here then?
It was little, and then Kalinda's like, "Okay, microaggressions. Like, I don't buy this. Can you read this one?"
Oh my god, it was so fucking like we know what she did. She flipped him the bird, and I
Yeah.
love Alicia's face. Alicia's like, "Oh my god, like why would you do that?" It's so fucking. I mean, Kalinda is right off the bat offended by this man and all of his
Yes.
mumbo jumbo. So she reads him exactly for what he is at first sight.
Well, because her job is to like respond to the case as it's happening, right? So
Mhm.
like things will happen in court and she'll go find more information, or things will happen in court and she'll go interview someone or do something, or come in with a map and tell us what everything is going on. So I
Yeah,
think she's like, they already have me. They already brought this Blake guy in. What do we need this jury whisperer guy who is getting paid $60,000 a week?
a week, and
Like,
like and
what do we
also
need this guy for?
and also Kalinda deals in tangible facts, right?
Yes.
This guy is dealing in reading expressions which are not fact. They are feeling about how
Yes.
this guy's feelings about other people's feelings. Like this to Kalinda is just a bunch of nonsense. And she pretty much tells us that off the bat.
Yeah, exactly. And we don't even know what the case is at this point. I'm like, why is this guy
Mm-hmm.
here? What are we doing? But we do end up finding out that Lockhart Gardner is defending a guy that they think killed his dad to change the will. And the guy's like, my dad was the best friend. I would never do that. But also, like, don't bring up my career. Like, don't bring up what I do because people hate what I do. And they're like, what do you do? It's like SEO. I'm like, he does something way worse. Like, no one is getting up in arms over SEO.
Well,
No, like,
well, they said something about him, like him being responsible for people getting spam. Was like spam emails. I think was
sure.
mostly what this is. Like, oh, you're the guy responsible for me getting like all these like junk emails. Great, fantastic. I would hate that guy too. I would find guilty. I'd find that guy guilty if I was on a jury for all the nonsense clutter that I get in my email box.
But I just was like, there's got to be something deeper here than SEO. Like, this is kind of like how it's how the world works at this
We will
moment.
never know because we don't focus on this guy really at
At
all. Like
all.
we
At
just
all.
like he is very much in the background of his own case because we are dealing with so many other issues with this case other than the actual defendant and the actually what he did. Because I mean,
Yeah.
like you said, so the biggest charge is that he's like his dad wanted to change his will. So he killed his dad before he could change his will, which
Correct.
is what we're charging with. But again, we don't really dive too deep into it.
No. And right before the trial starts, Will's on the phone with Carrie, and I always call her Angelica. I forget her name on the show.
In the notes, Marissa writes our notes per episode, y'all. She says Carrie and Angelica are plea bargaining. I was like, Angelica. I was like, oh yeah,
Angelica
Angelica,
Schuyler. Yeah.
Angelica. It's Geneva Pine, okay, aka
Yeah. Oh,
Renee Lee's
Geneva Pine.
Goldberry.
Yes. Yes.
Geneva
Yes. Yes.
Pine,
Yes. Geneva Pine. So Carrie
Angelica.
and Geneva Pine are plea bargaining with Will while he is at basketball court. So Will's
Mhm.
calling is like, hey, and Carrie brings up this, like, in Roman times, the blah 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 blah, and was like, really? Okay, let me just. Hey, Judge Weston, the guy assigned to this case. Why don't you just like, come over, like have a conversation,
Uh-huh.
and lets Carrie know that, like, hey, I'm here with the judge. You sure you don't want to make a deal? And Geneva Pine is like, well, we'll get him to recuse because
Mhm.
of the situation. And Will's like, don't even start. I know you play tennis with so and so. I know that the state's attorney, plays poker with these other people. And Carrie's sitting there going, like, what about me? Like, when am I going to get in the game?
Well, I think
What's going on?
he's also making fun of Geneva because Will's like, and Geneva, I know you play tennis with Judge. I think he said Judge Adler, which was
Yes.
the evil Judge Adler we've seen a couple times. And Carrie's like, oh, you play tennis with Judge Adler? He's like miming it to Geneva, like to make fun of her. I think that's what that was. Like, because
Okay.
yeah, because Will's pointing out, like, yeah, I do it, but so do you. Like,
Yeah.
Glenn Childs does it. Like, this is a thing that happens. We all know this is what happens in our profession. So don't even come at me for doing the same thing y'all do. So get over it. Blah blah blah. And we know usually whenever we see a smug and cocky Will Gardner, that the shoe is going to drop at some point, and
It's
it's gonna fall against him.
literally anytime. I think this is true. We'll have to test the theory for like any man who gets cocky. Because like Carrie can get cocky, falls.
Mm-hmm.
Will gets cocky, falls.
Yeah.
So Carrie and Geneva have a conversation like, well, we could like lower it down to this, lower it to this. And Carrie's like, not, let's just go with the evidence.
Yep.
Let's see where it takes us. Let's move forward. So in the judge's chamber,
Carrie's like, nah, this guy killed his dad, and the jury's gonna see that. I don't care what other thing is going on. Like, this man killed his dad. It's clear as day. That's what we're gonna go with, and that will like spoiler alert. We'll talk about that at the end of the episode. Like,
yeah,
because Carrie's kind of right, but
yeah.
like Carrie's like, no, 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 he killed him. The jury's gonna see that. We're good. Like,
Well, because
we're
they
still gonna take
have
this to
these
trial.
like photos of this man lying on the floor with blood all over him. Like they have, it's like the evidence isn't circumstantial. It's
Yeah,
like pretty cut clear case.
but they're really gonna kind of get into their heads for
Yeah.
different reasons and kind of lead themselves to believe different things. So I think it's a really interesting part of this episode. We'll talk about it as we go, but Carrie's just like, nah, we're good. We're gonna try the case as is.
So in the judges' chambers before, oh, do we want to talk about who the judge is being played by in this
Yes,
situation? Judge
Judge
Weston,
Weldon, I
Weldon,
think Weldon, Judge
yes,
Weldon
Weldon,
is played by David Oyelowo, who if you're familiar, you're familiar. He was, I think his big break came in Selma, where he portrayed Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
yeah.
He's been in Red Tails. He's been in The Help. More recently, he's on the TV series Silo. Watching Silo, I hear I need to watch
Oh,
Silo.
it's good. It's pretty good.
It's Yeah, I heard it's a really good show. He was also portrayed the lawman Bass Reeves in a show that I watched one episode of and actually talked about for the show with my friend Chappelle on Recap Kickback like a while ago. Spoiler, I did not continue watching the show. It was that not good. But David Oyelowo was the titular Bass Reeves. So yeah, I think this is probably right before he hit it big. So yeah, this is an interesting moment. I was like, oh, David Oyelowo's here. Oh my gosh, like interesting.
Like, oh hey. So Alicia's in chambers with Carrie and Geneva. Will is not there yet, but Alicia wants to make it a point that, like, hey, we're not going to consider my client's profession. Like, it has nothing to do with
Mm-hmm.
this case. And Carrie agrees. And as we talked about in the last episode, anytime Carrie agrees quickly and without a
Mm-hmm.
fight
You know,
is
there's a
never
problem.
good. Never good.
We I think we skipped a little part because Will does play basketball with the judge, and
Oh,
Will plays at first. Will's being Will. He's like, oh, I'm not gonna play hard against the judge. I think he knows not to go hard against the judge. He's going up against him. And Bond, who's there playing basketball with him, is like, hey, like, I can
yeah.
see you're not trying. Like, you need to try. Like, go ahead, do your thing. And so Will plays defense hard against the judge, ends up fouling the judge, kind of like aggressively fouls the judge, and they get into a little tiff. The judge's like, "Hey, bro, what's up with that?" Because the judge kind of like, "Oh, you scared to play D on me? You scared to play D on me?" And Will's like, "Nah, I ain't scared. I ain't scared." And ends up playing big D on him, like kind of
Yes.
literally knocks the judge to the ground. And the judge's like,
Yes.
"Yo, what up? Like, I didn't tell you to play me that hard." And so they sit down, and Will's just like, he's like, "Hey, like, no hard feelings. I was just trying to play. I was just playing to play. Like, it's basketball, right? Like, we're good." And the judge at first is like, he's like, he looks a little forlorn, and he's like, nah, I'm just playing. Like, we're good. Like, it's all Gucci. We're good. Like, no problem, no problem. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, but then he's like, yeah, we're okay, but I'm gonna go home.
Yeah, like
Like,
there's another
I'm
game to be
leaving.
played. There's another game to be
Yeah.
played, but the judge's like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna leave. I'm gonna go home. Which should have been our first like instance, like maybe everything's not so great. But yeah, that's when we get to this scene with Alicia, Geneva,
Yes.
and meeting with the
Yes.
judge.
Thank you. Yeah, I did forget to talk about that part, so thank you. So yes, Alicia's in chambers asking like, "Hey, don't talk about the client's professions." Carrie's like, "Yeah, okay, cool." But also, if we don't talk about the profession, we just want to make sure that like the jury knows that he drinks.
Mhm.
And here is this picture of evidence that he's drinking. Just this picture happens to be of the defendant dressed up in a Nazi uniform because he's a World War II reenactor.
Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
And so this is where my mind went to people don't like what I do. Like I was like,
Literally.
this might be the thing that he was talking about. I have no idea. But the argument here is of course the defense is like, you can't submit this. This is what is this? And Kier's like, I think that well, you do it. Like Kier's like, I think that you could like the
Yeah,
jury has enough
you know.
could figure this out.
Yeah, because
The
like because
defense
character
has
the
to
whole
provide the context around this.
yes, the whole thing is like uh so the reason so what the prosecution is putting out there is that this man killed his dad because his dad was going to write him out of the will. The reason he was going to write him out of the will is because this man is a chronic alcoholic, and so dad was going to write him out of the will for that. And so, like you said, they said, okay, yeah, we won't put in that he's a spam mail provider, blah blah blah, but we have to talk about the drinking because the drinking is a key reason that he's
Right.
being around the will. And to show that he is a drinker, we will provide this evidence of
Like
this
there's only
man.
one picture. This
One picture.
only picture of this guy.
Yeah. There's one picture of this man with a drink, and he just so happens to be wearing Nazi regalia in this picture. and and of course, Will and Alicia are like, okay, like that's not cool, right? We know what you're doing. Like we obviously see, like Judge, like you see what we're doing. And Kira's like, well, I mean, like you can provide the context, like you can present it, like we have no problem with that. And Willie's like, come on, Judge, you gotta throw this out because this is just like this is ridiculous. And the judge, after this dust up with Will, it's like, nah, we're gonna let it in. I'll let the photo in. Like it's all
Yeah.
good. It's like,
And I think like Will's like taken off guard, of course, but I think he thinks like, okay, he got it out of his system. Like,
yeah.
okay,
Will
like
has a
we
look. He's
can,
like, hey, that's weird. That's not cool.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So in the courtroom, they're going over the evidence. They found DNA of the defendant's the defendant's DNA under the nails of his dad. So
Which
like
is like
linking him to that,
just like
like
obvious
here we
evidence of like,
go.
yeah, he's probably did it.
And then they mentioned the fact that like the reason why he wanted to be written out of the will is because he was like struggling with alcohol, and it was one of the things his dad didn't want him to do. So here's this photo, and they show the photo to the entire jury, and of course we have Medina, Mr. Jury Whisperer, like just
Yeah.
staring at everybody, and he comes out and reports like people look disgusted at this man.
Like,
Well,
this is
first he
not
goes into
good.
this whole thing of like, there are 7 core emotions. And Will's like, yeah. Get over it. I don't care.
Yeah.
Tell me what's going on. The defense is like, okay, so we have to have a new strategy here. Let's try to tie this to some robberies that were in the area. And the prosecution is like, no, like that's not gonna work. So of course they go up to the judges. They approach the bench.
The bench,
They
yes.
approach yes, I
That's
was
the
like
word. The bench.
the
Yeah.
place where the judge is. They approach the bench and have this conversation. Prosecution's like, no, you can't do this. Will is like, well, the jury can make up their own mind if as long as there's context provided, right? Like that's what I heard about this photo. And the judge is like, nah, I'm going to sustain the objection here and side with the prosecution. And Will's like, what objection? There was no objection. And then Wakir's like, objection.
Objection. Actually, objection.
So this is like a clear sign to Will that like, okay, this guy's not on my side. Like this basketball plan isn't playing out how it usually does for me.
Yes.
Like,
it usually works in my favor, and that's what we're gonna get.
Great. And in the back of my mind, I'm keeping this. Are you also keeping this? That Bond is the one that kind of provoked Will to take to step up on defense. Like, do you think it was just a good spirit of the game, or do you think that Bond has some ulterior motive?
I don't think Bond has an ulterior motive in this case, because at this point, Will and Bond are still good. Yeah. They're still boys. So I don't think I think Bond was just being competitive and like weird. But I don't think that, Bond had anything to do with this in that way. So I think this is Will's own thing that he got. Because I mean, Bond didn't tell Will to foul the judge. Like
that's true.
Bond didn't tell Will to knock the judge to the ground. Like, bro, like that was you.
That's true.
I told you to him up. I didn't tell you to knock him to the floor. Like, that was on you.
So after this confrontation in the courtroom, Will goes back to the other court, hence the name Two Courts. Goes back to the basketball court. He's not dressed to play. He goes to confront the judge and is like, "Okay, you're not going to make this like easy on me, right?" Because the judge is like, "Okay, what's going on?"
Like, just playing dumb. He's like, "What do you mean? Is there a problem? Like, you have a problem here? Like, do you have something to say to me?" Yeah, Will's like, "Oh my god, like you're gonna actually make me say it."
So Will's like, "You're holding a grudge against me because of this foul situation, and you can clearly see it playing itself out in court." And the judge is like, "No." So Will's like, I'm gonna ask, like, you should recuse yourself." And the judge is like, "No, we have the jury. I'm not giving anyone grounds for mistrial here. Like, you have to learn to play defense. So play defense."
I said, "Oh, yeah, that's a little line on the wink of like, yeah, I am against you. Like, that's correct. I am taking this on you."
So Will's like, okay, new plan. Like, another new plan. It's like, okay, I'm going to provoke the judge, but Alicia, I need you to take the brunt of the blame, because we want the jury to feel bad that the judge is going after, that the black man judge is going after the white woman lawyer. In the situation. Well, I mean, I think like the power thing is enough, but I just did want to point out that that's enough.
I think this was a race thing. Like, a lot of things are racing. This, I don't think it was a race thing. This was like a
friendship thing.
Yeah. And a man yelling at a woman. Like, that don't look good. Like, in any context. Yeah.
So like, you're gonna have to take the brunt of the blame. She's like, "Yeah, no problem. Are you going for jury nullification?" And he's like, "Yeah, jury nullification or a strong appeal." So at this point, they're like, "We're not even going to try to win this case. We just got to do something to get out of the situation." Outside the courtroom, Alicia's talking to Eli, which we will talk about that conversation a little bit later. But while they're talking, the defendant like walks up and in front of Eli, shows Alicia this photo. He's like, "Hey, look, here's this photo of me drinking a non-alcoholic beer."
In Nazi regalia.
Yes. Yeah. And Eli, the Jew, is like,
it's like, oh,
okay. I get it. Nazis deserve to be defended too. Like, Alicia's
like, go ahead, say it. Like, I know what you're thinking. He's like, no. Nazis get a defense too. Everybody gets a defense in America, even Nazis. So good. Such a fun moment between Eli and Alicia.
Yeah. So back in court, Will does motion for him to recuse himself. Recusal of the judge.
And I think it's pertinent information to say that this happens before the jury comes into the courtroom, which I think is a key component here of what's going on.
Also key, the judge says, "I've never held somebody in contempt of court before, but I will break that record if you do not sit down." So he's like,
because Will's being a little feisty with his thing. He lays it all out for everybody, including Carrie and Geneva on the other side. He's like, "Listen, I fouled you on the basketball court. You got a problem with me. You're taking it out on us. So I'm gonna need you to recuse yourself." And Carrie, they shoot to Carrie. And Carrie's like eating this up. He's like, "Yeah."
He's like popcorn. He's like, "Oh, this is great.
You thought your big judge basketball game was gonna help you out, but now it's really coming up against you, huh?" And like, and as you said, like Judge Walter's like, no, like, we're not doing that. Like, sit down, and Will's keep arguing. He's like, listen, I will find you a contempt. Like he is literally Will's plan is working. He is riling this
Yes.
judge up, and
Yes.
enough so that when the judge calls, he then calls jury back in, because the jury has no information about this recusal thing or
Right.
the foul thing, so they have no idea what's going on.
Right. And when the jury comes back, they put a Mr. Cooney on the stand, who is the apartment manager, who overheard a conversation between, I feel like this case and the last case, I'm like, between Big Bauer and Little Bauer.
Yeah. Bauer Sr. and Bauer Jr.
Yeah. So there was this conversation between the two of them. Dad didn't like that the son was drinking again and threatened to write him out of the will. And then the prosecution's like, okay, cool. That's enough for me. Alicia goes up and she's like, yeah, but you put new locks on your door, right? Like, so something was going on in the neighborhood. And the judge is like, I already ruled on this. Like, Judge Wallace, like, I ruled on this. You can't talk about it. And Alicia's so good at this, because then she's like, no harm, no foul. Like, no harm, no foul. I didn't mean to say anything. And he's like, do you have something to say? No, I just was asking questions. It's okay.
Yeah, the judge is like, foul? What do you mean foul? What are you trying to say? Foul who? Foul against what?
Foul.
What?
What do you mean by that? Like, define that word for me.
He's like, oh, it's just basketball terminology, Judge. You get it, right? It's just basketball. You don't have a problem with basketball, right, Judge? You don't got to issue me telling you using basketball terms, do you? And because the judge is so mean against Alicia, the jury's like, what the hell's going on? Like, you can tell they're weirded out by the judge, and we see Medina seeing this, and he's just like, oh yeah, it's working. It's working.
Yeah. And so he tells everyone, he's like, yeah, they're biased against the judge, they're biased against the defendant. And Will's like, okay, there's bias. Where are we gonna aim it? Like, what are we gonna have them focus on? We need Kalinda. Like, can you help out with this? And Kalinda's like, I have to ask my supervisor, which is the whole thing we will talk about.
Yeah, Kalinda, who's got her own issues, is not acting petty. She's acting petty. She's like, I'm not going to help you until I get what I want. So basically, just like, you're on your own on this one. And just kind of walks out the room. It's like, oh, Kalinda, you so sassy, so petty.
She's sassy there, and then in the next scene that we see of them, Alicia's like, hey, Kalinda, we got this, and this isn't working. Like, what can we do? And Kalinda's like, well, maybe he just did it. Yeah. And Alicia's like, when did you stop being helpful? Like, what is going on?
Like, why are you not Kalinda-ing? Like, you're supposed to be Kalinda-ing with me. You're not Kalinda-ing here. You just sitting here. Like, what are you doing here?
And Will's picking up on this. Will's done some conversations. Again, we'll talk about those in a minute. But pulls Kalinda into his office, and they have a conversation. And at the end of that conversation, Kalinda says, tell Alicia to target the manager, because if you want to put the bias on someone, put it on him because of his religion. So they go back to court, all laced up and ready to go.
Yeah. Alicia tells that to Judge Welding, and Judge Welding is like, you see him, his top spot next to, he's like, you like just keep using the basketball stuff, you keep picking at me. She tells the judge, like, yep, all Lisa ready to go, Judge. As she does with her she's like, oh yeah, all her sweetness, all Lisa ready to go. It's so funny. It's such a fun device they're using to kind of pick at the judge.
Yes, yeah. And so she ends up questioning Mr. Cooney about his religion, and this is hitting a tough spot. He's like, I just don't think it's fair that in Germany they don't recognize Scientology as a religion. And it's like, oh, this is I did not expect Scientology to hop into this at this moment. But she, establishes that he's a Scientologist. She establishes that he had keys to the apartment, and he was the only one to hear the fight. So it's not a lot of stuff, but she's, I think, just trying to cast any ounce of doubt that she can in the situation.
And apparently this manager had argued with Big Bauer about religion, and people had heard that fight. So it's been reported that the manager fought with the guy as well. So it's like, maybe the son didn't do it. Maybe you did it, my man. So maybe our client is innocent.
Maybe. So jury goes to deliberate, and then 20 minutes later, they come back.
That's never
so
good.
so quick. But the whisperer, Medina, is like, microbursts of calm for Mr. Bauer. He's not guilty. Not guilty.
We got this. We're good. It's not guilty. And Alicia, Will and Alicia are patting each other on the back, like, yeah, we did it. We got this. Medina says not guilty, so it must be not guilty, right? Right, Marissa?
How do you find the defendant? Guilty.
Oh, damn. They're just like, what? Like, Medina, you said we were good.
Well,
Like,
and this whole time, like Medina's been having conversations about like he's got an 80% rate of accuracy and like all of this stuff. And we already know he's getting paid like boku bucks for this
yeah. And
and
like
all this
he
stuff. And I don't, in this case, we're learning while the case was very straightforward and we think, in terms of he did it, the methods, like because they strayed away, the law firm strayed away from straight up law or Will's way of playing tricks or something like they went a different direction. They kind of lost
they lost the plot.
the plot in that
Yeah.
situation.
Because ordinarily we would have put so much more energy into proving this man's innocence, into
Yeah.
finding a way to put on someone else, even if we know our client is guilty. But we let, I would compare, I'm a huge fantasy football person, right? So I play fantasy football a lot. I'm big into it. I'm crushed that the season is over for fantasy football, but I did win a championship in one of my leagues, so I'm
Oh,
good. Yeah,
congrats.
but it's like when you listen to these fantasy football podcasts, you listen to these projection people that tell you which way you should go because of this, and that, all the different stats, all of this and that. Usually, this person does this and that. So you listen to that person, you put in the wrong player, and your player on the bench goes off for a bunch of points, and the player you have active gets like 3 points. And so you're just like, because I listened to these people, I lost the plot. I didn't put in the person that I know I should have put in. I let people get in my head, maybe think about it too
Yeah.
much, and
Yeah.
I got beat because of it. And that's kind of what our law firm went through this episode, because Medina is so busy spewing his nonsense about what they need to do. He kind of leads them astray, right? And Kalinda is on it from the jump. Kalinda is like, Medina and Kalinda have this like conversation before the jury deliberates. They're watching them have lunch or whatever. And
Yep.
Medina's spouting this thing like, look, it's like a wolf pack. Like, this guy here is the alpha leader, and they listen to everything he says and does. And he's trying to explain his mumbo jumbo. Clinton's like, it's like a magic trick, right? Like, it's not real. And he's like, it's not magic. You can read people.
Well,
People are
yeah.
always readable. This is like, and to a certain extent, but he's going too far into it, and he's let our people think that they have already won before they've won.
Yeah. His whole thesis is like people are predictable. They're like dogs. Like
Yeah.
you can train them, you can do all this stuff. And Kalinda has worked enough in her life and is human enough to know that that is not the case.
Yeah.
And I think like from the jump, which we'll talk about when we get into Kalinda's storyline, but she took a backseat. I think she really played this whole thing to her advantage and let it go the way it needed to go. This was a perfect case for her to do that with. It wasn't a high profile client. It wasn't, something like that, but she used it to her advantage.
Yeah, this was a loser case from the start. Like,
Yeah.
there wasn't much to assuage the guilt of this man. Like, everyone knows he did it. We know he did it. Like, he knows he did it. It was just a matter of getting that guilty verdict.
Well, and even later when Alicia's like waiting outside, first of all, she sees Medina like just walk right past her.
Yeah,
Like
because
has
he's the
nothing to say to her.
the Wizard of Oz has been revealed, and for what
Yeah.
he is, the Flim Flam man has been seen to be kind of a con artist. So he won't even acknowledge Alicia. He just literally walks by her, won't look her in the eyes. Like, I'm like,
Takes his money and run.
let me slip out of here. Yeah, exactly.
And then she waits for the foreman and is like, "Hey, you don't have to answer my questions, but it really helps us learn. Can you tell us like why was it such a quick turnaround?" He's like, "Well, there really was no disagreements." And she's like, "Well, I know you didn't take the manager's testimony seriously, like, but what was it that really convinced you that he was guilty?" It was just like, "He did it. I
It's
hope
that
that helps."
simple. Like,
Like,
there's so much going on in this case for our people, right? We have the jury whispering in their ears. We also had the judge and his bias, because that's
yep,
what our people were focused on a lot. They're like,
yep.
we gotta prove this judge is ruling against us for different reasons. And she asked the guy, like, but you didn't see that the judge was like biased towards us? He's like, yeah, like, we definitely knew that. We definitely saw that. We saw he hated you, but didn't matter.
But he
Like,
did it.
the dude was guilty. Like, there's nothing much else to that. It's as simple as that. Y'all are in y'all's heads. We saw the evidence. We saw all these things. We were like, yeah, he did it. I don't care what else is going on. He guilty. And that's what we
Because they
ruled.
were down, like, yeah, they were on the ground. They were looking at the facts. They were looking at the evidence. They were in Kalinda land,
Yeah, exactly.
and everyone else was up in Bond land,
Yeah.
the new age way of thinking. So that was our case of the week that highlighted some things going on within the firm. Let's talk about what else was going on in the firm this episode. So at the start of this episode, Derek Bond is back. He's back. He's back.
You know, I don't like to be ranting and raving about this, but yes, Derek
Get
Bond
on a soapbox.
Derek Bond is back. Michael Ealy, the actor, is back in our lives. You know who wasn't here? You know who we didn't see all episode? You know who wasn't even mentioned after being here for so many episodes?
No, he was mentioned. He was mentioned.
His name was said. His name was said. We didn't see him, though.
We did not see him.
Julius Kane, not here. Julius Kane and Derek Bond have never been in the same episode.
Are they the same person?
Are they the same person? I don't know. But it's so annoying. Like I mentioned it when Michael Ealy left and when Bond left and Julius came back, right? Right smack dab each other, buddy each other up against the episodes. Now Bond is back. Julius is gone. Come on. Tell me I'm not seeing what I'm seeing. Like,
no, you're seeing it.
You can't say it's not real because we have enough proof, enough sample size to say this is real. Kings, what's up? What are we doing? What are we doing? Come on.
I wonder if we can can you use your Twitter power? Can you go back? Can I?
Oh, now you want me to use my Twitter? Now you want me to use my resource, the evil Twitter? You want me to use?
Yeah. Or I'll check on Blue Sky. I'll check there. I'll see if they're there. But I wonder if we could ask them a question or two.
Listen, I've reached out to the Kings and they don't want to talk to me.
Okay, then we just have to go back to New York and try to get on set. Like that's what we gotta do.
Hi, Robert and Michelle. Me and my friend have a wife podcast. Maybe you guys would want to come on the podcast. Nothing. Radio silence.
All right.
They don't want to talk to me.
But if you said, "Hey, Kings, I noticed during a rewatch that Derek Bond and Julius Kane were never in the same place at the same time," would you like to explain that on my podcast with my friend?
That'll get them.
Maybe they'd answer.
They'll definitely want to come on after I accuse them of that.
That's what Will would do.
Just a smidge of racism.
Okay, so Bond is back.
Julius is gone.
Bond is back. Bond is back. Julius is gone. Talks to Will and is like, "Hey, I heard you talk to Diane." Will's like, "Yeah, I think everybody heard I talked to Diane. Like, it's not a secret." And Bond's like, "I just need you. Like, I need you to make amends. I need you to keep her calm for about 2 more months because I need to bring in the super PAC and it's going to be like $100 million or something like that. And we need to be good on the books for 2 months. She cannot leave before 2 months." So Will's like, "Okay." Meanwhile, right after that, Diane and Carrie are in a park, which I have to say looked like Central Park. It did not look like anywhere that I know in Chicago. So I don't know. Maybe they're doing some incognito. And also the shots were really tight. So they weren't like showing a lot of things. Anywho, it's just my thoughts. So Diane approaches Carrie.
Was on maybe Moransky was like a Broadway and we needed to shoot in New York or something for
something like that.
Because I think Diane took Will's threats to heart and just didn't show up to the office. It was
didn't.
I don't want to show up to the office. I don't want no beef at the office. She's doing all of her stuff outside the office, like meeting incognito with Carrie in this moment.
Carrie, who's on a run, he's just doing his Carrie thing, and Diane says "Hey, we're starting this new firm." This is where Julius is mentioned because Carrie is like, "Who's coming? Who's going?" And "Why don't you come with us, Carrie?" And he's like, he does this frown thing. He's like, "I'll consider it."
I'll think about it. I'm not sure. I'll think about it. He's like, of course, his first questionings are, "Is Kalinda coming?
Where's Alicia?" Yeah.
No, he's like, "Is Kalinda going to be there? Because it's hot. I like Kalinda." He's like, "And is Alicia going to be there? Because me and Alicia, we got this thing going on. If Alicia's there, I'm not there." And of course,
and right after, in the prior episode, Diane tells Will, "I think Alicia's going to come with me."
You're right.
And go to Carrie. "No, I think she's going to stay with Will."
She's going to go with Will. And so it's Carrie's like, I'll think about it. Interesting. And Diane pretty much comes clean. She's like, "Listen, I've seen you in the state's attorney's office. You're doing your damn thing. You have grown up since you left our place. We should have never let you go." She is really
She's
sucking
laying
up
it
to
on.
Carrie. She's laying
Yeah.
on thick. She's like, we never should let you go. I seen you growing up. Like you're in boot camp. You're ready to come back in the game. She's like, yeah, she wants to give him the. She's gonna put him in as a senior associate, like a 2 year
And a
track,
2-year
a
path.
partnership.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's giving him all the good stuff, and he's actually thinking about it. He's like, and Alicia's not gonna be there. Like, sign me up. Like he of course is telling like, I'll think about it. He doesn't want to seem too eager. He's like, I'll think about it. But he's
Well, you
probably
have
gonna
a
jump at
week.
this.
Is that doable? Totally doable.
So
Okay.
definitely doable. Yeah.
Yeah. So Will takes, Bond's ask to calm Diane down to keep her in the fold to heart and goes to lunch with her. He's like, I'm sorry. Diane's like, what?
No, he's like, I'm sorry. She's like, what'd you say? He's like, you heard me. He's like, no, I didn't, because you literally mumbled it under your brain. He's like, I'm sorry.
They have this like cute little moment and just like, you'll stop seeing other women. Like this whole little back and forth. And within this apology, he's like, what would it take for you to stay, basically? And Diane's like, I want full transparency. I want to see who you're meeting with, who you're talking to, all this stuff. And Will's like, oh, that would make me nervous if you were leaving. And Diane's like, right, but I'm not leaving.
So she
So
flashed him a smile. I was like, huh, it's a good thing I'm not leaving. all the meanwhile in the back of her, she's like, I'm totally leaving. I'm totally going to sue all your clients.
yeah. Yeah. Back at the firm, Kalinda walks into Bond's office to find Blake there. In my notes, I say, he's a big jerk. He is being like, he's like telling Kalinda, I need you to do background checks with the associates today. I gave you a task. I need you to do it. And Kalinda's like, what is this about? And he's like, we've had our fun. We've played our games, but I have been made your supervisor. Kalinda just like laughs. And then Blake is like, yeah, have a good laugh. And when you're done, come back and do the tasks I assigned you. And she's just like, thank you. Thank you. And then Kalinda takes this information and is like, okay, well, that's not cool. Because we know no one is the boss of Kalinda. Like
No.
Kalinda just does her own thing.
Cannot happen.
So she's like, okay, how can I get this done? So I'm going to take the stuff that I found in Blake's car about him doing a background check on Alicia. And so Alicia and Kalinda are in a conversation. She's like, hey, what's your old address? Like, and she tells her, and she's like, oh, interesting. So here's this background check information that Blake was doing, and he asked all your neighbors and he talked to him and like all this stuff. So, and this is like, Alicia's like, no freaking way. Like she gets up and she goes straight to Blake and is like, absolutely not. Like, this is not what's happening.
I don't know if we've ever seen Alicia this mad. Like, you've probably seen her this mad a couple times, but she is pissed. And like, I love how Kalinda presented this information. She's like, oh, hey, I just happen to have these papers here. Like, this shows that Blake was doing some surveillance on you? Does that sound familiar? Does that sound weird to you? Like, what do you think about that? And Alicia's just like, say what now? He did what? He was talking to my old neighbors in my old house before I moved to my poor penthouse apartment. Say what?
Well, and like Kalinda played it so great because at the start of the scene, she's sitting so far away from Alicia, right? Like, and Alicia's like, what's going on? Like, are you okay? Then she takes that moment to move closer to Alicia to have this conversation where she gives the papers and stuff. And then Alicia rushes into Blake's office and is like, don't you ever do that again. And like, who's doing it? And Blake's just like, unfortunately, I can't. And Blake is being such a jerk because he's like trying to calm Alicia down, and Alicia calls him out. It's like, do not calm me down. Do not even try.
But Blake does
Don't
look a little
even
scared.
go there.
He looks a little scared about Alicia being like this forceful. He's like, whoa. He's like, what is happening? He does try to play cool, but he has fear in his eyes because he's never seen Alicia like this, and Alicia is a rabbit right now. She's like, would you ever look into me or my background? I was like, Alicia, what is in your background? Are we gonna find something crazy? Like, did you kill someone? Because she is borderline threatening this man.
I think she knows what Blake is capable of, and she knows what he can do when he's questioning people. And so she doesn't want any of that in her world or her life. And so she's so rageful. She takes that, goes straight to Will.
straight to her baby, like straight to Will, like, hey, what's going on?
And Will's like, I have no idea what this is, but I will find out. I will find out.
And at first, Will is like, oh, like this is the talk. you wanted to
Right.
have. Like, a couple episodes ago, you're like, we gotta talk. Like, we gotta talk. And Alicia's like, huh? She's like, what? No, no, this isn't that. Like, she tells him about the big things. She says, no, this isn't the talk I want to have. He's like, oh, I know what talk you want to have. She's like,
You
wait,
do?
how? How would you know? He's like, Diane told me. She's like, what? She's
I
like, I,
love is it possible that we are talking about two different things? Like,
she's like, how would Diane tell what? She's like, oh, I think we're talking about two totally different things here.
and she does tell Will, like, I'm not gonna go with Diane. And
Yeah.
Will's like, yeah, that's good. But Will is like also pissed about the situation because if it's
Mhm.
not him and it's not Diane, it can only be Bond. And Bond had already like is playing Will to keep Diane in the fold for something. So he knows something is up. Kalinda takes this information and tells Will, "Hey, Blake has been made my supervisor."
And he's looking into not only Alicia, he's looking into everybody, including
Yeah,
including you, Will. Like, so what's up? Like, so this is a problem.
yeah. And was like, "Okay, how can I fix it?" And again, like Kalinda, this is not the first time we've seen her do this. Like negotiate a raise in a very, very smart way. Because she's like, "I need $50,000 more a year. I need a $50,000 a year increase." And Will's just like, that's too much. And it's just like, you just give $120 to this jury whisperer, dude. You can totally pay me. Like,
Or
I
like
can see through this.
120K, like 120,000 to this
Yes.
man, and you can't pay me 50 grand. Like, I love how like she came in just like, I need 50,000 a year. Like, whoa, like that's a lot of money. Like, I don't know how much money Clinton's already making, but
Well,
for you to be like
and
50K a year,
especially in that time,
mhm,
like, yeah.
was like, nah, I can't do that, bro. She's like, oh, but you can pay this mumbo jumbo man a bunch of money, so I think you can pay me. And she's just like, deuces, and just walks out. Like, you figure it out. Bye. And like, as you said, like in this time, Kalinda is like, oh, you need my help? Talk to my
She's
supervisor.
totally, yeah,
Yeah.
like withholding everything. So, like, Will sees that this is like impacting the case and the way that things are going. So he goes and talks to Bond and he's like, why is Blake investigating everyone? And Blake's like, well, I had to know, or like, I had to know who I was getting into business with. Will's like, bullshit. Are doing this after you got here.
Mhm.
So what was this about? And Bond gives like, if there was a BS and BS, like Bond is really good at it because he's like, oh, it's just like information retrieval, and I don't know what's relevant until I have all the information. And Will's like, shut up,
Yeah,
like
like, stop, bro. Like,
stop.
all this new age nonsense you're bringing, like, Will is sick of it. Will's just like, nah, I've had more than enough. You messing with my girl, Alicia, that is the last
There's a
straw.
line.
That is the line. And if Bond, if you knew anything about anything, you would know the two people you don't mess with are Alicia and Kalinda. Those are the two people you don't F with in this law firm. Because at that point, Will's had enough. Because if you're
Yeah.
messing with my girl Alicia, then I gotta stop you. I gotta go against you now. Because you messing with my baby, that's a problem. It's like,
And Bond, so he agrees to stop in the situation, and Will says, okay, well, also, Kalinda needs a bump above Blake, and he is not her supervisor. And Bond's like, nah, can't do that.
mm,
Can't do that. And Will like walks out of his office and says, well, then the waters will not be calmed.
oh, yikes.
So with this new information, Will goes and has lunch with Diane again. And is like,
This is a real
hey,
lunch.
yeah, I know what we said before, but we were both lying. We've been played by Bond. His whole move is to bring in this big client and then vote you out in 2 months. We're just going to do the same thing to him. Like, I'm going to keep going with his plan, but we can vote him out in 2 months. And Diane's like, okay, cool. Like, I'm in.
Like,
Like,
oh, we're not effing around anymore. Because he's like, yeah, for real this time. I'm sorry. She's like, what? She's like, wait a minute. I thought we were all good. He's like, nah, but we were both effing around. Like,
yeah,
neither one of us are real. And I was like, oh, okay. So what's the real then? Tell me the real tea. And Will lays everything out. Like you said, he's like, me and Bond are planning to get you out, and now we gotta do the same thing. And it's like, okay, like, cool, I'm in now. Like we were just playing around before. Now we're in the real notes. So we're the real gritty. I thought that was such a great, like, Diane and Will scenes are always interesting and fun. But like,
yeah.
now that Will's come with his kind of his hat in hand, and Diane's like, oh, okay, like, so we're back together.
Well, this is like one of the first times he's saying to her, like, I need you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I need you as a partner. And as they displayed in the last episode, they are very similar in what they do and what they want. So it's to their benefit to be on the same team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have this lunch. This is enough for Diane to go back to Carrie and say,
Well,
actually,
that offer I made, yeah, well, things have changed again.
things are in flux. And
Uh-huh.
so Carrie's like, yeah, that makes sense. And then she makes a pitch again, like, hey, why don't you come back? We made a mistake before. Like, we could do all of this. And Carrie, man, Carrie's like, what's Alicia's salary? She's like, I don't know. I could find out though. He's like, double it and put me in above her and I'll come back.
Ooh.
And Diane's like, oh, you've grown up. Carrie's like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
I'm a
baby,
big
I've
boy
grown up.
now.
Carrie wants to. Now he's willing to come back with Alicia, but he like you said, he wants to double her salary, put me in a buffer. He wants to rub Alicia's nose in it. He's like I'm sure if this ever happened, he'd come back like, so Alicia, like, guess what my salary is? Like, yeah,
Or
it's
he'd
double
like
yours.
bring in his pay stub
Or drop it
and
on the
be like,
ground.
yeah,
Yeah, he's
yeah.
like, oh, sorry, Alicia, can you pick that up for me? Oh, don't read it. Oh, you read it? Oh, look at that. I make so much more than you. And
And
by
it's
the way,
like highlighted and circled.
he puts Alicia's number in there. He's like, times 2 equals my number. It's like he would have rubbed her nose in it so hard if this had ever happened. And he went to the Kalinda school of negotiating. It's like do this and
Yeah.
this, and I'm here. And that's just how Carrie is. Carrie, if he's gonna be in the same thing with Alicia, he needs to be better than Alicia to get his retribution, get his revenge on Alicia when Alicia didn't even really do anything to
She
him.
didn't do anything. She just existed this
Yeah,
entire time.
exactly.
So, yes, things again are moving at the firm. We did also have a little bit of campaign news in this
Yeah.
episode. Peter brings his buddy Adam into the campaign office because the campaign needs fundraising because of the whole endorsement thing didn't go well and blah 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 blah. So Adam helped on the first campaign, so why doesn't he help on this one?
Yeah.
And I know Adam looked familiar to you,
Yeah,
Jason.
Matt Letcher, who was a big fixture on the CW superhero shows. He was a big villain on that and those franchises. He was like in all the superhero shows. So he was a big person in that. He was also on the show Eli Stone, which I think if anyone likes this show, they would enjoy Eli Stone. It was a quite a quirky kind of also lawyer-ish drama/comedy about a guy Eli Stone who like saw God or whatever and is using that to run his cases. It was a very very interesting show. So if that is something you want to check out again, like check out Eli Stone. It was a really fun little show. But yeah, I know him from that as well. So he was familiar to me. But if you need a pompous kind of schmarmy villain guy, this is your guy to get.
He is definitely that because Eli sits him down to have a conversation and he's like, I don't really need you here. And Adam's like, yeah, but I brought in the money. Gets me a seat at the table. Eli's
My
like,
money.
welcome to the table.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here. That gets Adam to be like, oh, hold on one second. Do. Let me phone Jackie.
Let me phone
Hey, Jackie.
you know
Hey, I'm just here. Eli doesn't want me here, but you do, right, Jackie?
let's talk about the phoning of it all
Again?
real quick, because we used to be part of the network poster recaps, and there's a Discord of poster recaps, and we have a little community there for the good pod. We had a little thing set up, and Tova from that
Oh,
Discord
Tova.
wrote in to talk about the phoning. She says she had the same questions about the word phone as a verb in the show. She looked it up and said at one time Robert King has addressed it. He said apparently it's something he says and kind of became an inside joke in the writers' room during the first couple of seasons, so they used it in the show. If I remember correctly, it does taper off. But so
I love this
yeah,
so much.
so phoning is intentional. It's enough to make everyone go like, why do they keep saying phone all the time? There's where the meaning call, and why do they keep saying phone? So that's a little interesting inside scoop that Tova was able to dig up and send to us to let us know that they found something about it. So that's a really interesting thing, and it's such a thing now that every time someone says it, I'm like, it's almost like a counter. We should have a phone counter of like phone counter for this episode 5
Would you say
times.
like a phone number?
Phone number. There you go.
Oh,
phone number this episode is 6 or something, like, because it does hit me every time they say it.
Phone,
I
phone,
phoned
phone,
him.
phone. Thank you for that, Tova, and thanks to the PSR peeps for always having our back when it
Yeah.
comes to that stuff.
Uh, yeah, but like, it was interesting when they brought Adam in, because when Adam's brought in, like, Eli comes to the office. He's like, first of all, Peter's here. That's weird. Second of all, he's palling around with this guy and like reminiscing about the good old days of the old campaign. And Eli sees this immediately as a threat. He's like, "What the hell?" Like, let's not forget that when Eli first came on the scene, he got some lady that was working on the campaign booted almost
Yep.
immediately.
Yep.
Um, so he is not like any threats. So he's just like, what the hell's going on? He talks to Peter. He's like, don't worry about it. He's not a threat to you. Like, you're still the boss. You're still the
You're in
guy.
charge.
Yeah, you're in
Yeah.
charge still. Peter tries to like dissuade him of this notion, but Peter's just like, nah, bro. Like, this ain't good. I'm get him out of here.
So once Eli finds out that Adam's connected to Jackie, I don't know how, but in his Eli way, he finds Jackie at a liquor store. Again, Jackie must have
Mhm.
like really loved the wine time with
Yeah.
Owen or whatever, but finds Jackie at the liquor store. And Jackie's just like, oh, well, I wasn't getting updates on the campaign, and Adam always kept me informed. So the thing is like Adam doesn't mind bothering me, so I think he's good for the campaign. And Eli's
Mhm.
just like, ugh.
Yeah.
So this is what makes Eli go to Alicia at work, and Alicia's just like, I do not like this. Do not come to me like with this stuff. If you want to fire someone, just fire someone. Why are you talking to me about this? Like,
Yeah,
I don't
because
understand.
Eli does his Eli thing and tries to manipulate Alicia. He's like, yeah, it's like, this guy, he's coming in, he's talking about the good old days, the good old days when Peter was cheating on you. And there's someone from his past when he did those things coming in here and trying to talk to him. Doesn't that a problem for you? And Alicia's just like, let's cut that here. Like, just if you want something, just let me know. Like, what do you want? You need help? Let me know. But don't try to come in here and manipulate me to try and help you. Just tell me what you want. It's,
And yeah, and that gets
Eli should
Eli to
know by now.
say yes. Eli's like, well, he phoned Jackie. He was phoned in by Jackie. And this gets Alicia to be like, okay, the only way to get through to Jackie is
Mhm.
by going through Peter, because she's the only, or he's the only person she loves and listens to. Like, that's how you deal with Jackie. So Eli's like, great, game on. I'm going to hold a status meeting. Everybody's invited. Everybody come into the conference room. Jackie, you're also invited. Like, everybody's here. Peter's like, Mom,
Oh,
so
great.
great, so great, and goes up to Eli and is like, "What's my mom doing here?" She's like,
Mhm.
"Well, she said she wanted to come to the status meetings. It was okay with you. I just told her when the meeting was. I didn't tell her what to do."
My fault.
Yeah, Peter's like, "You have to tell her she can't come," and Eli's like, "No, no way. The only person she's going to listen to is you." And I loved in the situation, like, Jackie's sitting down, everyone's standing around her, she's trying to read, and he's like, is the type too small, Jackie? Is everything? She's like, no, this is perfect. And then gets everyone to give her a round of applause, and Jackie's like, oh no, oh me, like all of this attention.
Yeah.
And Peter does talk to Jackie and is like, hey mom, like, I need to do this on my own. Like, I need to do this on my own. Like, I am in my upper 40s or
Yep.
whatever. I need to do this on my own.
Yeah, this
And
isn't my, science project that you can help me with. Like, this is something that you can really help with. Like, I need to be a big boy now and do this on my own. Like, so you got to kind of stay out of the way. And
the time has
he
come.
breaks it to her as nicely as he can.
Yes. Yeah. And Jackie like really does like take this in, because
Mhm.
she's like, can I still phone for updates? And Peter, in it's like he's dealing with a kid in this way. It's like, as long as it's okay with Eli,
Yeah,
like,
as long as it's okay with your mom or your
yeah,
dad.
like as long as it's okay with Eli. So that is the end of that, except for we do get one scene where Eli fires Adam in epic fashion.
Epic.
Like, unplugs the phone, puts stuff in a box, throws the box outside, wheels the car or the chair outside, and Adam's on the phone. Oh, hey, Jackie. Like, Eli's firing me. Jackie's like, oh, if that's what Eli wants, you should probably do it. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
such a
this
change, like such a 180 for her
yeah,
in this situation.
because Peter has kind of made it known that, like, Eli's opinion, Eli's, whatever is worth a lot here in this situation. So if you want to be cool with me in the campaign, mom, you got to be cool with Eli. So now Jackie is more, an Eli fan and is willing to have Eli call the shots here. I thought this was a very, like, this is a very fun, light political segment. Usually in all of our
Yeah.
political segments on the show, there's a lot going on, a lot of bad stuff happening, blah, blah, blah. But this is like a really, really light comedic politics segment for this episode. I really appreciate that because a lot of times we get a very heavy political segment. It's not great, but this is a really fun. Really got to show what Eli could do, how Eli can be very crafty and strategic. So I thought it was a really great episode for the campaign.
Yeah, I think it did a good job moving Eli closer to the center of the
Mhm.
story a little
Yeah,
bit, like making sure he's the one in charge, talking about his relationship with Alicia, how he can be as manipulative as everybody else on the show and
yep.
getting what he needs and what he wants. So yeah, as we mentioned last episode, we are kind of at the midpoint. We should be picking up some steam here, and I think we're in like all the pieces are in good places, I think, at
Yeah.
this point.
100%. Yeah, that was a really fun, really great episode. As you talked about, the case of the week was less case of the weeky and more of like dealing with different aspects of the court case. So that was a lot of fun. We got some movement on the Kalinda Blake stuff. So I think we're heading in a great direction. So
Yeah.
yeah, like I said, that's our episode. Marissa, do you want to give the people an update on what you're up to, what you're doing, where they can find you?
Currently, you can find me on Instagram threads and Blue Sky. Although I have to say, with the way 2025 is going, I also have a website. If you just want to go to marissagarza.com, you can see what the heck is going on. But you can find me on those social networks at It's Me, Marissa G. I'm usually up to some sort of creative project or helping someone else with their creative project. So if you want to know what I'm into these days, that's the best way to find me. What about you, Jason?
You can find me on Blue Sky JR33D. You can also find me on the evil Twitter. Yes, I am still there. JYR1085. If you want to ever chop it up with me, let me know what you're feeling or thinking about this show. You can do that. You can also, as I said earlier, email us at thegoodpodfeedback@gmail.com. If you're also looking for other podcast things of mine, I am on the Rob Has Podcast Network talking about the show Married at First Sight with my co-host Asia Welch on the podcast A Perfect Match. So if the Married at First Sight show tickles your fancy, come on over and hear what we have to say about it. That's all for us this week. Till next time, stay good.